Hello YouTube. My name is Braden Gerard and welcome back to another one of my YouTube tutorial videos. Today, we're going to talk about two things. First, we're going to talk about how we can set up a SvelteKit project in the current beta. Now that it's maturing, a couple things have changed, so we're going to go over and I'll point out some of those differences from previous videos that I've made. And then on the other side, we're going to also talk about how we can do authentication using a JSON Web Token. So I've done a previous video on cookies, and today we're going to look specifically at JSON Web Tokens, and we're going to use Strapi as a content management system that provides us this JSON Web Token to our SvelteKit application, and then we'll use the front end bits of SvelteKit to create a front end for our application. It's going to be a very basic login to, say, a profile authenticated screen, and we'll set up that login and show you how to use that JSON Web Token that gets sent back from Strapi to communicate with the content management system in a secure way. So without talking more, let's jump into the video and we'll take a look at how we can do this. Okay, so first we're going to make a directory like always for our project. We'll call this one SvelteKit JWT, and then we'll change into that directory and we will do an npm init svelte at next, which will generate us a default SvelteKit project. Yes, proceed. Okay, do we want the demo app or just a skeleton project? I think I'm just gonna go with a skeleton project for this one. Do you want TypeScript? We'll say no, ESLint, no, prettier, no. All right, now let's change directory. Sorry, no, we're already there. So now we can actually do an npm install to install our default libraries. And now we should be able to do an npm run dev. And we have our skeleton project up and running. And there it is. Okay, so now that we have that skeleton project up and running, we can start working on the code to sort of implement a very quick login form. So if I go back over to Visual Studio Code here, let me just open up that project. So SvelteKit JWT, and we are going to go into our source folder, and then we have our routes. So at the top level of our routes, we want to create a new file, which will be our layout. And so we'll call this __layout.svelte. Now notice this is a new sort of way of naming your files, or convention for naming the theme files, template files. So that's how it's been changed in the beta from the original version of SvelteKit that was sort of pre-beta, where we had the @ symbol. So I had some comments on that, just clarifying there. This is how you now name your layouts. So in this layout, we're going to create a navigation. And in that navigation, we're going to have three things. So we'll have a home, which will go to /, and then we will have a login, so that'll go to our login page. And then we will also have a profile. So what we're going to do is, if they are logged in, then they should be able to see the profile link, and if they're not, then they won't see this profile link. So we'll add some logic to that later on. Now in here, we are going to add the slot, okay, and that's where our rest of our project will get inserted, or the rest of the files will get inserted into our layout, so our HTML files here. So anything that's in our index here now should be added inside of this slot. So if I save that, and over here we'll now see that, is my project not running anymore? Hold on. Okay, I have an error here. Let me see. Looks like I might have named this wrong. Why do I have an E at the end? I don't know. Okay, is it gonna like that better? There we go. Okay, so back over here, like I was saying, now we have our menu here. Okay, we can just add some really quick styling to that. So inside of here, let's create a style tag. And we'll say give our A links a margin on the right of 10 pixels. And just spread them out a little bit. There we go. Okay, so let me zoom the browser a little for you guys so you guys can see this better. There we go. So we have our menu here, and it takes us to our different pages, which currently don't exist. So we get this 404 from the browser. So let's go over and actually first handle that. So let's create an error page, okay? So if for some reason a page fails to load, we can have our own custom error pages in SvelteKit. So inside of our routes folder here, we'll make a new file, and we'll call it __error .svelte. Okay, and then this can be the page that we show whenever there's an error. So what we could do is we could just get the actual error and display it in the page. So to do that, we would create our script context equals module, because we want this to get the error before the page loads. And then inside of that, we just export the function of load. And inside of that, we receive an object, and we're going to take out the error and the status from that object. And then inside of this function, we need to return our props, which will have that error inside of the object that we return from props. So we have that object, and we're going to return, we'll call it a title props. And then inside of there, we're going to say status, so whatever the error status is, and then the actual error message. So error dot message. And then we can have another backtick here and there. So we return the string with the status and whatever the error message is as a props. So then that means that in our page, we can simply get that props. So we can say export let title to get the props, and then we would put it into our page. We'll just put it in an h1 tag title. Okay. And then if I go to a page that doesn't exist here, I go over to login, we get the error 404, and we get the not found message /login. Okay, so now we have sort of our own custom error handling page. So that's how you would set up your layout and your error. So these are sort of two things you want to set up with most projects sort of off the get-go. You can also create nested layouts. So if I wanted to have, say, a subset of pages under my profile where I said, okay, so we have profile, and then inside of there we have an index.svelte. Okay, so that's my profile page. And then inside of there we also have maybe like a contacts or something, I don't know. If you want to have a different layout for these profile pages, then you can actually create a new layout inside of that folder. And this will be a nested layout. So what will happen is this layout will be inserted into the outer layout, and then everything inside of this profile folder will be then inserted into this layout. Okay, so you can nest your layouts like that. So we could have another slot here, and above that we could put, so you're in your profile, so we could just say welcome to your profile. And then that will display at the top of every profile page. I should put this inside of like an H1 or something. And that'll display inside of every profile page, so that we don't have to add it to every page, it'll just display there. So if we go to /profile, we have that index page there now, so we're not getting a 404, and it says welcome to your profile, even though I haven't actually added anything to this index page. So down here, let's put the person's name, so we'll just say Braden, make that maybe an H2. And then we'll make this name dynamic once we actually log in and have the information, but we're just setting up sort of like a roughed out profile page right now. And then, if I go to the contacts page, so that would be /profile /contacts, you can see that we still have that welcome to your profile, but instead we would have whatever the content is of that contacts page. So we could say like your contacts, right? And then it would show that on the contacts page. So that's how you would do a nested layout, again with a double underscore. So back here, we're going to go back to our index, and currently we just have welcome to SvelteKit, visit, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. We're going to leave that as our index for now. We need to make a login page. So let's make a new folder and call that login. And inside of there, we want to make a new file, and we'll call that index.svelte. And then inside of there, we want to actually create our form. So let's create a form. Actually, we don't even need a form. Let's just create a couple inputs. So we'd have an input type equals text, because this is, or sorry, email. Okay, and then we would have another input where the type is equal to text. This is going to be the username input. Okay, and we'll name this one as the email input. And we'll add a placeholder to both of them. Enter your username. Same for this one. Placeholder equals enter your email. And then on our final input, we would have the password. And then inside of there, we'll have a placeholder that says enter your password. And then down here, we will make a button and we'll just say login. I'm making a registration form, so we don't need both email and username, so we can just take one. So for now, let's just set it to the person's username. So we'll get rid of the email and just put the username in. Since we're just going to manually create the user inside of Strapi, and we just to save time, we don't have to do all of the registration. Type equals password, name, password. Okay. So if I save that, and then we go to our login page, we have this very basic form. Let's just add a, let's just wrap this inside of a div. And in there, we will just put some padding on top of it so that it's not super tight to the menu. So we'll do a style. Div margin top 20 pixels. Okay. So we have this login form where we put in our username and we put in our password and then we log in. So I think we've pretty much stubbed out everything that we need now. We have our home, we have our login, we have our profile, which will be dynamic and only visible if we're logged in. And yeah, I think that's good. So now we're going to basically connect to Strapi. So let's look at how we can set up Strapi quickly and then use that as our backend. Okay, so getting started with Strapi is fairly easy. All we have to do is go npx, create Strapi app, and then the name of it. So we'll call this one SvelteKit Strapi, and then we'll just start with the quick start setup. So if we run that, that will bootstrap a Strapi project for us. And then we can run our Strapi. Oh, I'm in the wrong version of Node. So this is just a little note. Strapi only works on Node 14 right now. So I just have to open up, if you're on an M1 Mac like I am, you have to open up a Rosetta terminal. And then let me just zoom this again for you guys. And then you have to change your node version to 14. So I'm currently NVM in the node 16, so I'd have to do NVM use --LTS because 14 is still the current LTS version. And now that I'm using node 14, I should be able to use Strapi no problem. npx create Strapi app, SvelteKit Strapi, and -- quick start. So by default, Strapi will set up a project and it just uses SQLite as the database locally on your machine, and you can work from the admin panel inside of Strapi using that SQLite database. So we'll log into the admin panel with our admin user. That'll get us a setup right away. And then we'll create a user account with the user permissions plugin. So Strapi has a plugin that basically will set up all the user permission stuff for you, so that you can just create users inside of Strapi and then log in with them. There's also a process to actually register a user from the front end if you wanted to do that. But we're not going to go through all that today, just to keep things, quick, so that we're just looking at how to deal with the JSON Web Token that Strapi provides us after we've logged in. So now that our project is building here, it should be done in a minute. All we'll have to do is say npm run develop, and then we'll be able to start working with our Strapi admin. And we're almost done. Okay, there we go. Actually, Strapi will start up on its own for us once it's done installing. So we don't even have to run npm run develop, but typically that's how you would start it up later on, is if you wanted to run your Strapi project, just npm run develop. So Strapi has opened up here in the other window for me. Let me just bring that over so you guys can see that. And it launches on the default Strapi URL, which is the localhost /1337/admin. So I just need to set up my default admin account in Strapi, and that is going to take me 1 second. Sure, use that password, and then let's start. So this is what the default Strapi admin panel looks like. What we want to do is we want to go to plugins, and we want to do the roles and permissions plugin right here. You guys can't see that, I don't think. Hold on. Roles and permissions here. So if I click on that, oh, sorry, it's already installed. So it's installed by default, actually. So we just need to go to settings, and then under the user and permissions plugin, we go to roles. And by default, they've set up an authenticated role for us and a public role for us. So that's really all we need. So if I go over here to users and I add a new user, I can create a username. So let's say Braden Gerard, my email, and my password. So we'll just use, let me just use a simple one so that I don't forget it. Okay, my password, and I'm gonna, do I need to confirm my email? No. And do I need to be blocked? No. Okay, so save. Okay, now I have a user right here. Sorry, I should set confirm to on. That's basically just so I don't have to confirm my email. Save. So my email's been confirmed. Good. So my account should be good to go now. So what I have to do is I have to do a login request to actually log in and get the JSON Web Token for this user account. So let's just minimize this again, and let's go back to our code for, we'll also minimize that for our SvelteKit front end. So if I go back to that code, we can now create a login function. So let's go over here and let's do a couple things. First, we want our requests to sort of be handled elsewhere so that we're not always writing out all the fetch request logic to create requests. And then secondly, we want our token to be stored whenever we do get it back. So we'll make a lib folder inside of our source here. And inside of that lib folder, we're going to create a file. And that file, we'll just name it, we'll call it request utils. So new file, request _ util.js. Oops. Okay, and inside of this request utils file, the first thing we're gonna do is make a little helper function that will allow us to retrieve something from our browser's local storage. So we'll just call it browser get. And then inside of that method, the function will take a key, which is the key of what we want to get. And then we will say if the browser exists, const item will be equal to local storage dot get item by the key. And then we will if we actually find an item. So if item, return JSON.parse the item. So if it's there, return the item as a JSON object. And otherwise, if the browser doesn't exist, we return null. Or if for some reason it can't find an item. Now, to use this if browser here, what we have to do is import from SvelteKit. So import browser from the helper methods in SvelteKit app / environment helper, helper functions. And then we have this browser variable, which tells us if we're actually in the browser or not. So whether it's a front end being executed on the front end, which it always should be. And then we'll also do the same for a browser set. So we'll just copy and paste this browser set, except instead of just a key, we want a key and a value. If the browser exists, we'll do local storage.set item. And we don't need to have any response here. And we'll say key and value. And that's all we have to do. Okay, so we have our browser set and our browser get. So let's actually implement our request util here, which will make use of those browser set and browser get helper methods. So inside of our request util function, it's going to be a post request. So we'll call it export async function post, and then it will be fetch. So we're going to pass in the fetch from wherever we are importing it. And then we're going to say the URL that we want to make the fetch request to, and then also the body of the fetch request, because this is a post type. Then we will handle our errors. So first we'll set up a little error boolean here, and we'll check whether we need a custom error or not, which I'll get to in a minute. Then we will do a try around everything that we're doing. Let's create an empty headers object that we'll store our headers in. We're going to make this a little bit robust so that if the body that we pass in is an instance of form data, so if it's actually coming from a form, then we will set our, sorry, if it's not coming from a form, then we will set our content type equal to application / JSON. And we will also set our body equal to JSON.stringify body, just so that we have that ready to go over the wire. We need to get our token here that we're going to send in our request. So we'll say token equals browser get. And then we'll just get our JWT. Well, that's what we'll call our token. And if we have a token, so if the token actually comes back from our browser get method, then we will set our headers authorization equal to bearer with a space plus the token. And this is how we're going to use our JSON Web Token to authorize with Strapi, because Strapi looks for that authorization header with a bearer and then the token set as a bearer type. Now, the last thing that we have to do is make the request. So let's say const result is equal to await fetch, and then we will put our URL in here, and then we will have our object in our request here. So the method, the type that we want to send. So this is going to be a post request. And then we will have the body. And then we will have the headers. Okay, now when we get that request back, so the response, we want to check if the response .ok. So if the response is okay, but we're going to say not. So if the response is not okay, then we want to do something else. So let's create a new try catch block, and we will say const data is equal to await res.json, and then we will say const error is equal to data.message at 0 dot messages at 0. So let's get that error message out of the request, or at least the first error message. And then we're going to say that this is a custom error. Make that equal to true. And then we're going to throw the objects. So we're going to throw an ID. So error.id. We're going to throw a message. Error.messages. Or message, sorry. And then we'll catch here. So if for some reason we can't actually get the JSON out of the error, and that throws an error itself, then we'll say console, we'll just console.log it because we don't know what the heck is going on. And we'll just throw the error. And then we will say return. So if the response is okay, then we'll just say return response. And then we will add our catch here. In case our first request, just something happens and we don't even get a response at all. So then in our catch, we'll say console.log the error, and we'll say throw custom error. So if we've already created our own error and thrown it, we're gonna check that that custom error is, so if we did throw a custom error here, I don't want to throw the default error, so we'll check if there's a custom error. And if there is a custom error, then we're gonna say error. And if there is not a custom error, because that'll be the custom error that I'm throwing here then. If there's not a custom error, then I'm just going to send a message, and that message will be an unknown error has occurred. If we don't really know what is going on with the error. And that needs to be inside of a block, and we'll give it an ID. We'll just actually set that ID to an empty string. And we'll give it a message with that an unknown error has occurred. And we'll throw that object. So now in our app, we can always expect this format for an error object. We can expect an ID of some sort with a message as our error handling. And so just a little bit of basic error handling for post requests. We'd probably want similar error handling for like a GET request or something like that. But we can look at that later. It's probably not going to be needed for this app. But there's our post request. We've handled the errors. Now, if our post request succeeds, one thing that we're going to be doing on login is we're going to be storing that JSON Web Token so that we can then get it back from our browser. So let's go back over to, I guess we're going to actually need this browser set as well. So we'll export that from this request utils as well. And we'll export post from this request utils file. So let's export this one. Whoops. Browser set, export function browser set. There we go. And browser get, we can just leave internal for now. That's fine. I don't think we'll need it. So if we go back over to our index here, we're going to add a click listener to our button. So on our button, we'll say on click will be equal to, and then we'll just say handle login, and then we will have our script up here, and we'll say function handle login. So we need to import our import post from app environment, or sorry, not app environment, from lib / request utils. And then we need to say, this will be actually an async function. And then we're going to say await post. And then we need to pass it our fetch, pass it the URL that we want to go to. So we're going to be going to http / localhost 1337 / and then with Strapi, where we want to go for the login, is you want to go to / auth / local, and that will be where you can actually log into the website. So / auth / local, and then we need to pass it the body. So the body of our request is going to be an identifier, which is going to be either their email or their username. In this case, we are taking a username, so username. And the password, which is going to be called password, so we can just leave that like that. So that's our body. And then fetch URL body. Yeah, that's all we needed for our post request. Okay, and then we want to get our response. So let's say const JSON equals, so that's going to be our JSON response. And then if the JSON Web Token is there, which it should be, we'll just console.log it for now, just to see if we're actually getting our JSON.jwt back. Okay. Oh, come on, prettier. I don't want my semicolons. Okay. Username, and now we need to, one thing we have to do is we have to say let username and let password. And then we need to bind those here to our inputs. So we'll say bind, and then we want to bind the value of this field into the username. And then same for this field, we want to say bind the value into password. Okay, so we've got our username and password on here, and it looks like I've got some formatting going on, but that's fine. And when we click this, it submits handle login, which takes that username and password and requests a login, and we should get a JSON Web Token back. So if everything's still running here, and I go to login, let's check out what's going to be logged out here. So we'll go to our console. All right, yeah, that's fine. Okay. So let me just clear this so we can see what we got going on here. Username, Braden Gerard. Password is the password that I put in Strapi. Okay, and we're getting a readable state locked. Am I not? Hold on. Let's go to my request utils. What am I returning here? Oh, I'm not actually getting the JSON out of it first. That's an issue. Okay, so what I actually want to return here, so if the result is okay, we're still going to do a try. Okay, and then we're going to do a catch. So there was a mistake here in my post handler. I do need to get the JSON out, so we're going to say const JSON equals await res.json, because I was only doing that if there was an error to get the error message out of the JSON. So I still need to do it here. And if everything goes good here, then we can just return the JSON. But if there's an error here, then we're going to console.log the error. And well, it wouldn't have been a custom error because we haven't even got here yet. So we're just going to go return or throw, and then we're just going to throw that unknown error again. So we'll say ID, we don't know what this error is. There's better ways to handle this stuff. Just giving you guys a basic example to show you that we're at least abstracting out this error logic and this request logic. An unknown error has occurred. All right, so let's just leave it like that for now. But we're actually getting the JSON back now, which is what I was expecting the first time around. So let's call this JSON now. And then we can just say JSON.jwt. I believe, let's console log it just to make sure that's what we're getting. And we will log in. And when we log in, there we go. So there's our JWT. So JSON is this, and JWT is this. So if we say JSON.JWT, it'll give us the JSON Web Token. Perfect. So let's go back up here and also import from our request utils. We're going to import the set browser. I think that's what we called it. Or browser set, sorry. Browser set. And then down here, if we get the JSON Web Token on login, we're going to say browser set. And we called it JWT, I believe. And the JSON.JWT. So we're saving that into the browser. And now anytime we make a request, a post request at least, so far we've set it up only for post, but it's going to get that JSON Web Token. Where are we here? It's going to get that JSON Web Token out of the browser, and it's going to use that in the authorization header to create stuff on our API. Okay. So if we go back here, well, we should, when we log in, we should see that our browser storage gets a entry here from our site. So let's log in now. And let's see, what did we get in the console? Okay, that all ran. There's a web, let me set browser set. Let's just refresh this. And our local storage, there's the JWT that we just saved, okay? So it's there now. So now when we access our profile, we can pull down our name from our profile, and we can do that by using the JWT, okay? So let's do a GET request on our profile. So let's go over to our profile index.svelte. Okay, so we'll add a script tag here at the top of our profile, and we will say let name, and then in there we will put name instead of Braden, and we'll get this name from our API. So because we need to use the JSON Web Token from our browser, we can't actually use the context module load function and pull it in as a props, because that will be run on the server side and we don't have access to the browser there. So a workaround for this for now, this is the way I've been doing it at least, is just to use the onMount function from Svelte, and that will run on the client side. So we can simply import the onMount from Svelte, and then in here we can say onMount async, and inside of this onMount function we can say const result equals await fetch. We know we have access to fetch here, and then we're going to go http://localhost. Now I'm doing this here. Again, this would be much better to abstract out into that request utils that we made for a GET request. I just haven't written that all, and I don't want to do all the error handling because this video is getting fairly long. So I'll just do it here very quickly. And this video is getting very long, so I'll just do it here very quickly. Localhost 1337 /users/me. That'll get my user's information. And then inside of this, we also need to send a headers with the authorization. So we have authorization. And then inside of that authorization, we're going to send bearer. Sorry, the headers, this should be an object, headers object. And then inside of authorization, we want to send bearer space, and then we need to get our token. So plus local storage dot get item JWT. Okay. This is how you would do it if we weren't doing it inside of this request utils. Because in this request utils, we actually made some things here to check if the browser is being used, a little more robust. We do a get and a set here, and we're setting it up as a post. We could also set up another one of these functions as a get, and then we could just import that and run it here. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to do it really quickly here and show you how you would do it as just like a one-off, right? So I do my look_get my JWT and put that in the header. And then I should be able to make this request to Strapi on this protected route. So I can show you guys, if I just go to this route on Strapi, so I'll just go to localhost 1337/users/me, it's going to tell me that I got a 400 bad request, no authorization header was found, okay? So I can't normally access that. But because we're passing in that token here in this fetch, we should get a proper response. And I'm not going to error handle for this. We're just going to do it on the fly. We're going to say const JSON equals res.json. And then we'll just console.log for now, our JSON, so we can see where our name is sitting. So if I go here and we go to profile, okay, and let's look at our console.log. We're getting unhandled function invalid, header name authorization. Okay, next 6. Okay, so authorization. What did we do wrong here? Authorization. Headers. Bearer plus the token. Did I make a typo here? Hold on. Authorization. Oh, we don't need the my bad. There we go. We didn't need the colon. And here's our promise. So when we're logging this, we're getting, because I'm not awaiting here, so I need to await this because we're getting a promise back right now. And if I save that, there it is. There is our user's information. We get all the information back, including the name. So we can simply here say name is equal to json.name. And if we save that, welcome to your profile, Braden. Look at that. We now have a login working. If we were, if we wanted this to redirect to like an error page, what you could do here is when you do get an error, you would do a go-to using the SvelteKit go-to and send them over to your unauthorized error page or something like that. I think I've showed that in one of my other videos. I think I showed it in the cookie video, so I'm not going to redo that, but that's what you would do here to send an error and send them to a different page. But yeah, to wrap up this, we have our home, we have our login, and we have our profile, okay, and we get our profile information here when we're logged in. If we weren't logged in, so let's go over here and just clear our local storage so we don't have that that JSON Web Token. If we try to get our profile information, it's going to be undefined, right? And in the background here, we're actually getting an error. We're getting a 401. So I could be grabbing that 401 right here and then sending them over to an unauthorized page if we don't want them to even see anything here. All right, they're not going to get any of the data, but it still shows them like a broken page, which we wouldn't want to do in a proper user experience. So you would send them over to an unauthorized page or send them back to the login page. All right, but then if we log in, and if I log in with my password that I set up, now I should also have this redirecting over to the profile once we log in, but we can see now that I'm logged in because I've done my login and the JSON Web Token is now stored. And if I go over to profile, it's going to show me my name. Thanks for sticking around for another one of my YouTube tutorial videos. Today we looked at JSON Web Tokens, and we also looked at how we can set up SvelteKit in the current beta as far as a front end that is married to a back end with a headless content management system like Strapi. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to see more content like this, more SvelteKit videos, more headless CMS type development videos, definitely subscribe to the channel because I'll have a whole bunch coming up in the future. I try to release weekly so you guys can get that content that's nice and fresh. And yeah, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up because it helps YouTube show it to other people like yourself. Thanks. Have a great day.